Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3900b, and today's date is May 7th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Obama Panics, Deep State Election Rigging Cover-Up Just Collapsed, Trump Preps for the Insurrection. Now, here's what your financial advisors won't tell you. By the time the news tells you to buy gold, it's too late. You're waiting. I get it. Everybody's waiting. Waiting to see if the ceasefire holds, waiting to see if the Strait of Hormuz reopens, waiting to see what happens next. But gold isn't waiting for you. It moves on fear, on instability, on the unknown, and it moves faster than you can react. So while you're waiting for certainty, the rest of the world is planning for what comes next. You can wait or you can prepare. You can't do both. Remember, the best time to put on a seatbelt is before the accident, not after. If you're ready to act, reach out to Noble Gold Investments. They help Americans protect their savings with physical gold and silver shipped to your door or held in a tax-advantage IRA. No taxes, no penalties to roll over a 401k or existing IRA. Visit X22Gold.com for your free investor kit. 5 minutes today could protect decades of seconds. That is X22Gold.com. Don't be the one still waiting, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see Obama is panicking. He's out there trying to be relevant, trying to explain why you don't use the DOJ to go after your political opponents. You don't use it as a weapon because he never did. Actually, what that tells us is that he's panicking. He knows what's coming down the line. He knows that Trump is going to be getting the uranium. He knows the grand juries are impaneled. He knows investigations are going on. He knows that he is going to be the one that is going to feel the full brunt of all of this. And now he is panicking like we've never seen before. Remember, these people are criminals. And they're not just going to come out, if anyone's expecting them to come out, they're never going to do it. They're not going to come out, hey, by the way, I did Russian collusion. Okay, you caught me. They're not going to do it. Think about an actual criminal on the streets. Just because these people are dressed up in suits or pantsuits or whatever doesn't mean they're not the same type of criminal. One just dresses a little bit better than the other. But when you're looking at a real criminal, and I think people have seen the videos of criminals in the courtroom, they pretty much never, ever show remorse. They never really ever tell the truth. They keep lying and lying and lying. And remember, these people, they've been the masterminds of everything that we're seeing today. And yes, they're also being directed by other people. But again, they've been doing this for a very long time. And they've learned how to lie and then lie again to make you feel like it's the truth. So if you're expecting these people to say, yeah, you caught me, I did it, it's not going to happen. They're going to use lawfare, and they're hoping that they can use their corrupt judges to get out of it. Why do you think they made the judiciary the way it is today? Because they knew if anything should ever happen, they would depend on these judges to get them off the hook. Just like with the charges against Comey and Letitia James from the very, very beginning. They hired lawfare attorneys, and they had a lawfare judge, which was corrupt, blackmail, bribe, whatever you want to call it. And this is why Comey was able to get off on the charges. Because again, what happened? They depended on these judges. This is why I do believe Trump and team, they're moving very, very slowly. Because he knows that these deep state players, they put these safeguards into place to make sure that if any charges or anything was brought up to any of these specific judges, and remember, these judges will assign themselves, just look at Judge Boasberg. So if you're thinking, oh, they're going to get a great judge, well, it depends on what state it's happening in, and they've corrupted a lot of the judges. And a lot of them are sleepers right now where they're just waiting to be activated. And they put all this in place to do what? To protect the criminal syndicate. Remember, everything that we're witnessing right now is to protect the criminal syndicate and protect from them going to prison. And I do believe that Trump and team, yes, they're investigating. Yes, there's grand juries. Yes, they're gathering the evidence. Because remember, we only have one chance to do this. And we might as well do it right the first time. So does it seem like it's going a little bit slower? Well, again, some of these cases are much more complex. Some of them, they have to produce a lot of the evidence to show their intent and why they did all of this. But in the end, I do believe they timed this perfectly to come out right after the midterms, because at that point, you then have the ability to remove their protection they're counting on and then place those individuals in those spots that will do the right thing, that will follow the rule of law and actually listen to the case. And I do believe that is what's going to happen. And some of these people, they're hoping that the charges are brought out a lot sooner than that, because this way they know they have a fighting chance to beat the charges. But I think Trump, he knows this, and this is why he's moving at this pace. And this is why maybe John Thune was holding up certain evidence to basically maybe time this in a different way. Think about that for a second. Now, the other thing that we could see is that their cover-up of the overthrow of the United States government and the overthrow of the duly elected president in 2020 is now falling apart. It just collapsed because now we've had a judge that said, no, listen, the FBI, they confiscated the ballots, they can keep the ballots, and they can look into this and they can investigate it and they can hand it over to the DOJ, and the DOJ can analyze them. And Fulton County now is panicking. Actually, the deep state players across the country are panicking because once you see it in one place, you know they basically repeated this in every single other place. So once again, what you're going to see is you're going to see the cover-up is actually going to prove that they're guilty. What other reason would they have to hide this when the truth comes out? The people are going to see this and go, that is why they didn't want anyone to see the ballots, because they're all fake. Now it makes sense. And think about what's happening right now. We have the investigations going on. I do believe, yes, Comey, Brennan, Obama, Hillary Clinton. And remember, there's multiple charges, multiple cases against all of these people. It's all being done right now. The election investigation is going on right now, and we could see that it has just collapsed right in front of their eyes, which means the deep state players, what are they planning for? They're planning to strike back. Now, do I believe they're going to try to strike back before the midterms? Maybe not in the way that people think. I think they're pushing maybe this pandemic. I don't think it's going to work. We'll discuss that a little bit later. But I do believe that they already realize that no matter what they do, if there's a pandemic, if there's a cyber attack, or if there's anything like that, it's not going to stop the election whatsoever. I do believe that they realize right now that they're not going to be able to win the midterms. They're going to lose big time. So I do believe what they're doing right now is most likely they're going to plan afterwards, where they're going to try to delay everything. Because remember, that's all they have. Can they actually delay the election? Most likely not. Can they delay afterwards? Yes, I do believe so. And I think that's what they're planning on right now, where they're going to go full force into having the riots, having the certain distractions, maybe like a cyber attack, or trying to push maybe a pandemic, which I don't believe is going to work. I do believe they will try this afterwards. And you have to remember, I do believe that this is all coupled together with the economy, because you have to remember what Trump is doing right now. He's moving us from a central bank system into a people system. He's not just building the tariff system just to build another system where we can bring in income. He's not making the trade deals just to make trade deals. He's building that entire system to do what? To wean us off the central bank system. He's doing it so we are no longer enslaved to a private, what's a central bank system. In the end, he wants to shut the old system down. What does the old system do? The old system funds the deep state players. Where do you think the deep state gets their money? It's not from Congress. It's from the central bank. We have an open-ended credit card where they can borrow to infinity. It never ends. And they don't have to ever worry about paying any of it back. There's no accountability whatsoever. So they can take that money, make up fake programs, and funnel it into their system. If you shut that down and there's no longer an open-ended credit card, where do they get their money? How do they fund their system? They can't. But before Trump does that, what does he need to do? He needs to shut down their system all over the globe. Before he could shut the system down all over the globe, what does he have to do? He has to shut down how they make their money. So can he do it at the source right now? No. This is why he did it at the mid-level. Through the executive branch, he's able to do that. He's able to shut down USAID. He's able to shut down SPLC. He's able to shut down the NGOs. He's able to remove those people within the agencies that are actually transferring the money to many different locations. He can go into the Treasury and shut down the 14 computers that was just creating money out of thin air and sending it to all these different places. Can he shut down the source of their funding from there? Absolutely. Can J.D. Vance now track and shut down the rest? Absolutely. Which puts the deep state players in a very difficult position. Once he has the money shut down and blocks the money coming from drugs outside of the United States, can he then go after the cartels, the gang members, the terrorists, and shut all of that down? Absolutely. And that is exactly what he's doing right now. And like we said before, with all this shut down, with the money flowing into these different areas, coming to a trickle, it's going to be very, very difficult for the deep state players to actually push the agenda that they really want to push. I mean, they'll still try to push it, but it's going to be on a lesser scale. So are they going to try to push maybe a cyber attack? Yes, maybe, because again, if you have certain banks and you have certain individuals in place to push the idea that this invisible enemy is happening, yes, they can make it look real. Yes, the fake news can play this up. But again, it won't be on the scale that they would actually want it. And it's not just going to happen here in the United States. They're going to have to do it worldwide if they do something like this. Will they push riots across the country? Maybe in other countries too. Because again, you have to remember, everything's connected. So the deep state players are not just here in the United States. They're out throughout Europe. They're Australia, New Zealand. So yes, just like you saw it during the pandemic back with COVID, they're going to have to do the same thing now. It has to be done on a worldwide scale. And once they tried to push the riots here in this country, Trump has already set up the countermeasures. Remember, they've been trying to destroy Trump's countermeasures from the very, very beginning. They went after him multiple times. They're still going after him, but they're realizing it's becoming very, very difficult to try to stop him. They try to go after the military. That's the other part of the counterinsurgency. By saying, hey, don't obey Trump's orders. Well, that's not going over too well. Trump just showed the military he's completely on their side. He will back them no matter what. He will rescue them no matter what. They tried to come after the people by dividing the MAGA movement, saying, oh, MAGA is breaking up. MAGA is weak. Nobody loves Trump anymore. That all fell apart because all you got to do is look at the primaries right now. So all of that is falling apart on them. And all they have left right now is to push their gigantic event that is coming up. And I do believe this is why Trump is now prepping for the insurrection. He's been prepping from the very, very beginning. He needed the Supreme Court ruling saying, yes, the president has the authority to use the Insurrection Act. The president has the authority to use the War Powers Act. He did this on purpose. Remember, Trump is a planner. He plans things out way in advance to make sure that he has all the rulings that he needs, because when he needs to use these laws, there can't be any question. And this is why he went ahead and said, okay, our counterterrorism task force is going to use the same force against the left organizations, Antifa, SPLC, you name it. Yes, they will get the same force as what Biden, Obama, and the rest did to the right. So now he's evening the playing field, and now he's setting it up and prepping for what is coming. Because I think we all know what is coming. Because the deep state, yes, the central bankers, they're going to fight for their lives in the end. But in the end, it's all going to fall apart on them. Trump has all the leverage. And you can see every step of the way he's gaining more and more leverage as time goes on. Once Iran is complete, well, he's going to be going after Mexico and the cartels there. Actually, we'll be discussing that in just a sec. We can see sanctions were placed on Cuba right now, and Cuba will be next. And soon, Ukraine and the deep state players, that whole area is going to fall. And Trump will then have the leverage that he needs. Because again, when you remove the weapons from the deep state players, what are they going to fight with? And this is what Trump is doing. He wants to make sure that their leverage is so weak that they really can't do any harm to the people of this country, the people around the world. I mean, they will try. They'll try to push it, but in the end, it's all going to fail. But before we get to all of that, let's talk about what happened out in Texas. There was an individual with his kids in the back seat, and it looks like this person tried to carjack his car with his kids in the back. Now, he tried to do this with other vehicles, but it completely and utterly failed. And the individual who was driving the car, he had a weapon. And when this guy approached, he took his weapon out and he defended himself. And what we've come to find out is that the individual that was trying to take his car, he's an illegal from Mexico. So who's committing all the crimes in this? I think when we get rid of all the illegals, let's just put it this way. When we get rid of all the illegals in this country and all the people that the deep state players have been bringing in for a very long period of time, I think you're going to see crime drop to almost nothing. Yes, you'll still have criminals out there, but the crime statistics, I think they're going to go down like way, way down. And we're going to start to realize, wait a minute, all this crime was committed by the illegals? Wow. Now, the other thing that we could see is that those people that attacked Savannah Hernandez, yes, the DOJ is going after them, but I think Savannah Hernandez did something that every single person should do when they're attacked by Antifa and all these people. They should file a lawsuit against them. And, put this out and said, Savannah Hernandez has filed a lawsuit against the leftist family who violently attacked her in Minneapolis. The family also been criminally charged with federal crimes. And yes, there should be maximum pressure on these people, and they should be held accountable. You want to do something like this? You want to break the law? You want to hurt somebody? Well, guess what? We're going to hold you accountable, and you're not just going to get charges from the DOJ. You are going to get a civil lawsuit, and you're going to have to pay for doing something like this. And the rest will start to look at this and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because this is the only way you can start to counter all of these people. And I think it should be done all across the country. When these people riot and they hurt people, they set fire to businesses, and they are identified, they should be sued up the wazoo. They should pay the rest of their lives until their payment is made. And whatever crime they committed, yes, they must serve their time. And I do believe this is the way it should be done. And hopefully it will. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Harmeet Dillon, she is now going after all those states that went ahead and implemented the gun control laws. And remember, these laws have been put into place going back a long, long time. And many of the people are wondering, why were these laws allowed if they're in violation of our constitutional rights? Well, again, the deep state players, the fake news made you think that they didn't violate the Constitution, but they did. And the DOJ, their purpose was to make sure that the states fell in line with the Constitution. But again, when you have a DOJ that's part of the criminal syndicate, it's not going to do that. It's actually going to protect those states and protect the laws that they created. This is why the challenges really don't go anywhere. Now we have the Second Amendment division in the DOJ, and Harmeet Dillon is now going after every single one of these states. Now, she doesn't have to go after all of them. All she needs is a ruling for one. Then all the other states are going to have to start to fall in line. Now, you saw what happened in the past when the ruling came out from the Supreme Court. The states don't want to abide by it. But again, they don't have the upper hand. They just can't willy-nilly say, I don't want to do this. Because again, they could try, but when the people see this, they're not going to obey it. Because again, it's repugnant to the Constitution. And remember, we gave the government the contract. If you're not following the contract, we don't have to follow any of the things that you do, because if you're creating a law that's repugnant to the Constitution, it cannot stand. So Harmeet Dillon is pursuing this, and we'll be talking about that in just a second, but she's also pursuing what Fairfax County is doing. They're giving preferential plea deals to illegal aliens while discriminating against American citizens. If true, this violates several federal laws, and DOJ will not allow state prosecutors to play favors based on immigration status. So again, she's going after all of these different deep state cities, deep state towns, deep state states, and actually holding them accountable. Because again, they're violating the Constitution. And Trump did something very, very interesting. He had an accelerated training program to quickly deploy thousands of new ICE agents. And he decided, something, we're not going to have the 42 to 47 days of training. We're going to bring it back to the 72 days of training. Now, it's only a matter of 30 days. It's not that big of a deal. Because again, I think the optics for this will be like, if all these agents went out and they started to arrest and deport these illegals, the deep state players, the fake news, they're going to say that they're not properly trained. But if they do the proper training in 72 days, it removes that part of the argument. And I do believe this is why Trump and team is actually doing this. Plus, I don't think it's that big of a rush right now. I think they're prepping for everything, and they're realizing that they have enough time to do all of this. And again, it's just an extra 30 days. It's not like it's a make or break situation. Now, the other thing that we see is that Disney cruise ship staffers, they were among 28 people that were arrested in major child pornography operation. And I think we've always known that something has been going on with Disney from the very, very beginning. And we could see that it's now holding true. And what's very interesting is that families on vacation were unknowingly surrounded by alleged child predators working aboard the ships. You mean the corporation had no idea that they had these people on the ships? Or did they have an idea that these people were on the ships? That's very, very interesting. But I do believe we're going to see a lot more of this as time goes on. Now, like we said before, Harmeet Dillon, she is now going after the states that are violating our constitutional rights. And we could see it with the illegals. We could see it with the New York Times. We could see it with the Second Amendment. And she filed suit against the state of Colorado, accusing it of violating its residents' Second Amendment rights by banning commonly used magazines. And you have to remember, Democratic Colorado Governor Jared Polis, he signed legislation tightening the original 2013 ban on magazines holding 15 rounds or more, saying that you cannot have those type of magazines. Now, think about it. Once she wins the case in Colorado, this is going to spread to all the other states because all the other states have the same similar laws, like California, 10 rounds, Connecticut, 10 rounds, Delaware, 17 rounds, Hawaii, 10 rounds, Illinois, 10 or 15 rounds, depending on the firearm, Maryland, 10, Massachusetts, 10, New Jersey, 10, New York, 10, Oregon, 10, Rhode Island, 10, Vermont, 10, Washington, 10. So again, this is a violation of our constitutional right. They're infringing on our rights. And once she gets the ruling from this one state, it will then spread to the other states. Again, she doesn't have to attack every single state. All she needs is the ruling from the Supreme Court saying, yes, this is in violation of the Constitution. And I do believe in the end, like I said before, when all's said and done, we're going to see that all these laws from the very, very beginning have always been unconstitutional. And the only reason they were able to stand is because the DOJ, they protected these states. Now the protection is removed and everything is about to change. Just like it's changing in Texas. Think about it. There was supposed to be a Muslim-only event at a water park. And they told the people how to dress in the Muslim attire. And nobody else was able to go to this event. Now, this is a tax-funded water park in Texas, which is very, very interesting. So basically, this is discrimination. It's unconstitutional. Because again, should we say, oh, this is Black Day? This is White Day? This is Hispanic Day? Does that make any sense? No, that's not how our country runs. So basically, we could see that Greg Abbott, he stepped in and said, listen, if you would like to do this, that's no problem. But what's going to happen is we're going to remove your funding. We're going to remove your funding and all the grants, the state grants, you're not getting them. And then all of a sudden, they backed off and they decided not to do it. This is the way every single time. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that car leader in California, or CARE, Zara Billu, she is now advising, and Christopher Rufo put this out, her followers that they can express hatred against Jews in private, but should not write, I hate all Zionists on their social media profiles in order to be strategic. Remember, Gavin Newsom gave her group about $40 million. So basically, she's instructing the Muslims to hide their Jew hate on social media. Why? Is there a problem? Absolutely, there's a problem. Because again, remember, there's many different cases against CARE. And one of them is in Texas. And a federal court has granted Governor Abbott's request to see a list of donors to CARE. So that's very interesting. They spent years evading the release of their donor list. Awaken Outlaw says, this means that CARE will have to provide Texas with a list of its donors who gave their organization $5,000 plus over the last 10 years. This will help determine and prove if the group is indeed a foreign terrorist organization or not, especially if it's revealed that they are tied to the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas. Once made available, we're likely to find out why they fought so long and hard to keep it a secret. Yeah, I think we're going to find out very, very soon who's involved in all this. And this is why they're changing everything up on social media, because again, look what's happening. They're being investigated, and people are going to find out who's truly supporting and running this organization. Remember, it's infiltration from within, and it's all going to start to fall apart. Just like the drug running with the cartels, the gang members, it's going to fall apart. Remember, the deep state players, they're in line with the terrorists. They're in line with the cartels. This is their army that you're seeing. And Trump said something very, very interesting when he was speaking with First Lady for Mother's Day. And he said something about the drugs coming in from Mexico by land. And they've started a land force. And they're going to be doing something about it. Just take a listen here.
But drugs coming in by sea are down 97%. And now we've started the land force, which is much easier. And you'll hear some complaints from some people in, like representatives from Mexico and other places. But if they're not going to do the job, we're going to do the job. And they understand that. So that's sort of the easy one by comparison to the sea. We had to do the sea first. You had no idea how much came in by water. And very little, almost nothing is coming in right now. They don't want to do that anymore. But no one should ever doubt.
So that's very, very interesting. So he said drugs coming in by sea are down 97%. And now we started the land force, which is much easier. And we're going to hear complaints from some people, like representatives from Mexico and other places. So that's very interesting. Remember, last week the DOJ indicted Mexican governor. Now, here's what your financial advisors won't tell you. By the time the news tells you to buy gold, it's too late. You're waiting. I get it. Everybody's waiting. Waiting to see if the ceasefire holds. Waiting to see if the Strait of Hormuz reopens. Waiting to see what happens next. But gold isn't waiting for you. It moves on fear, on instability, on the unknown, and it moves faster than you can react. So while you're waiting for certainty, the rest of the world is planning for what comes next. You can wait or you can prepare. You can't do both. Remember, the best time to put on a seatbelt is before the accident, not after. If you're ready to act, reach out to Noble Gold Investments. They help Americans protect their savings with physical gold and silver shipped to your door or held in a tax advantage IRA. No taxes, no penalties to roll over a 401k or existing IRA. Visit X22Gold.com for your free investor kit. 5 minutes today could protect decades of seconds. That is X22Gold.com. Don't be the one still waiting, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Ruben Rocha Moya, along with 9 current former Mexican officials, for participating in a corrupt and violent drug trafficking conspiracy with cartel to import massive amounts of fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and many other drugs from Mexico into the United States. Trump now is shutting all this down. Yes, he's shutting down the drugs, but he's also shutting down the flow of money. So we might be hearing some news about maybe some action on the ground. Now, that's very, very interesting. Let's see how this all plays out, because I do believe Trump now needs to shut down the cartels in Mexico, in South America, and I do believe this is what Kristi Noem is going to be used for. One of her assignments will be to coordinate with the governments in South America, Central America, Mexico, and assist her in removing the cartels in their governments. So let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, we also know that we are coming up on Russia's Victory Day, which is May 8th and May 9th, and something very interesting is happening right now. And it looks like Germany has officially banned all Russian symbols on May 9th. So that's very interesting. So Germany has done this before, but this time with President Trump pulling back from NATO, this year holds a different context. So Berlin police published an administrative order on May 6th restricting freedom of assembly and access to public spaces in the areas around 3 Soviet war memorials from 6 a.m. on May 8th until 2200 hour on May 9th. So that's very interesting. And then Jim Ferguson put this out. Reports are emerging that Russia has warned foreign diplomats to leave Kiev ahead of May 9th amid fears Ukraine could target the Victory Day parade in Moscow. The warning allegedly includes a stark message. Any strike would trigger retaliation against Ukraine's decision-making centers in the capital. It confirmed this marks a dangerous shift from battlefield conflict to direct threats against leadership infrastructure. The timing is critical. May 9th is one of Russia's most symbolic national events, and any disruption would carry enormous political and military consequences. Watch this closely because if this line is crossed, the response may not be limited. The Last Refuge says, watch out for what this crew has planned this week. And he's showing a picture of Macron, Zelensky, Starmer, Merz, and the rest. I suspect the coalition of the willing is planning something time with Russia's Victory Day remembrance. Zelensky and his EU team are willing to provoke, then take a massive counterstrike from Vladimir Putin against Kiev if that's what it takes to keep the U.S. military engaged and aligned. The Ukraine meat grinder must remain satiated in order for the EU power structures to remain in place. This is a dangerous moment. So yes, will they push a false flag? Well, we're going to have to wait and see. But again, I do believe as they become more and more desperate, we're going to see a lot more of this, especially when Trump removes Iran from the picture. He removed Venezuela. We now know he's going after the cartel in Mexico. We now know that Marco Rubio has announced that sanctions are going to be hitting Cuba. And as the deep state players lose these different areas and their soldiers, they're going to become more and more desperate as time goes on. And as time goes on, you're going to see they're going to be pushing major distractions until I do believe the last one, which I do believe is going to be a cyber attack, trying to get us into World War III. Because that's been their goal all along. See, when the central bank system is breaking down, and they already decided that they were going to shut down the old system, bring us into the new economic system, and you can see that Europe and Australia, New Zealand, they're still following the Greedo scam. They're still following the central bank digital currency. They're still moving down this path. They're still following that path. But I think Trump is using this against them because he knows this is what they're planning to do. So why interfere with an enemy while in the process of destroying themselves? Because you remember, if you're going to have World War III, you need the other side to be on board in actually attacking or doing something to start World War III. If you don't have Russia on your side where they're going to actually do an attack and Russia is actually working with Trump and Trump says, don't do anything, it's a false flag. How are they going to start World War III? If China doesn't join in, how are they going to start World War III? It's going to be very, very difficult for them. So why interfere while they're trying to do this? I mean, think about what Trump has done with Iran. He's exposed Europe. He's exposed our fake allies. He's exposed all of these different countries and all these different leaders. And I'm not talking about the people of these countries. He's also shown that the Arab nations are working with the president. He's also shown the UN is absolutely worthless. It does absolutely nothing. And what's very interesting is that UN Ambassador Mike Waltz actually is now starting the narrative that the UN is absolutely worthless. The UN doesn't push peace. The UN creates wars. And basically, there's no reason for the UN. Eric Doherty put this out and said, Trump UN Ambassador Mike Waltz is going off on the United Nations, demanding the international community crack down on Iran holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage and launching violent attacks on ships. If the UN can't do something as simple as this, it's 100% useless. Imagine if we had countries have some type of dispute and then throw sea mines into the Straits of Gibraltar and then try to charge shipping through Gibraltar in a cynical bid for leverage. Collective punishment of the entire world to resolve a dispute. It's illegal in international law. We have to address these violations here in the Council. If a country opposes such a simple proposition, do they really want peace? And the UN is doing nothing. Think about that for a second. I think the funding should stop. And again, the UN is part of the deep state system. And I think Trump is exposing all of it. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Trump, as we know, he stopped Project Freedom because he said there was a deal on the table and it looks like they're working out this deal. And Trump continually says we're going to get the uranium, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and the deal is going to be made. Now, I do believe there are two factions within Iran right now. We have the one faction that is being pushed by the people. The other faction is the IRGC, the old faction. And yes, in some sense, the IRGC still has a little bit of control because they control all the switches, the weapons, and things like that. The people, they don't have full control yet. But I do believe what Trump is doing, he's working with the people. And this is why I do believe he said that weapons are coming into the country because, again, you need the new faction to become powerful, to fight against the old faction. And what's very interesting, since Trump shut down the Project Freedom, where the U.S. Navy was escorting ships into the Strait of Hormuz, NBC News put out a story that Saudi Arabia and other Arab nations weren't allowing the U.S. to use their bases, their airspace. Now, this is very, very interesting. Now, all of a sudden, it came out that Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the other nations saying, oh, no, the U.S. could use it. And this is a very interesting story because when you look at the story, well, all the information came from anonymous U.S. officials. They told NBC News that Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, refused to let U.S. military aircraft use Prince Sultan Air Base or Saudi airspace for operation. So Saudi Arabia didn't say this. Kuwait didn't say this. It was an anonymous source that said this. And this is the reason why they're saying that Project Freedom had to be shut down, because Trump didn't have the logistics, didn't have the basis to use to actually push Project Freedom forward. And a Saudi source said that, yeah, this isn't true. The U.S. still has normal access to Saudi bases and airspace. So what's really going on here? Was this just created to make everyone believe that the Arab nations all of a sudden didn't want us to use their bases, the airspace? Because again, they were all for this war. Does it make any sense? But if you look at the past now, and you go back a little bit in time, does it make any sense? No, because Saudi Arabia, actual position on freedom of navigation has always been, yes, no one should control the international waters. Nobody should control the ability to navigate through these waters. All the Arab nations were on board with this. So this story doesn't make sense whatsoever. Something is wrong. Mary Nafal put this out and said, Gulf countries are setting things straight at the UN. Qatar, closing the Strait of Hormuz is a massive threat to energy security. We need this resolution now. Kuwait, international waterways must stay open and safe. No threats allowed. Saudi, this strait is a lifeline for global trade. Any disruption is serious. The Arab world is done with Iran messing with Hormuz choke point. So does it make sense that they were saying, hey, you can't use our airspace, you can't use our bases? Something doesn't make sense here. Now, did NBC and the rest of the fake news, did they just put that out there just to try to confuse people? And this is why Trump had to stop the Freedom Project? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see how this all plays out. Or is there really a deal that's being hammered out right now? Is Trump waiting for the people of the country to get the weapons, so this way they have no problem making the decisions? And think about it. The deep state players, the fake news, they keep pushing the idea that this war is lasting so long. Oh, it's going to take forever. Well, Trump put this into perspective, and he put this out on Truth. He says, wow, study this chart. And it says length of wars. Afghanistan war, 543 weeks. Iraq war, 457 weeks. Vietnam war, 439 weeks. U.S. Civil War, 209 weeks. World War II, 196 weeks. Korean War, 161 weeks. War of 1812, 139 weeks. Iran excursion, 6 weeks. Think about that for a second. That should tell you everything you know. So the fake news blowing this up. Oh, look at this. This is unbelievable. It's ridiculous. And right now, there's no bombing. There's no firing. We don't have the troops on land compared to all the other wars. None of that is happening. The Navy is sitting outside the Strait of Hormuz. What else is going on? Yes, you might have Iran trying to do things. You might I should say the IRGC trying to do things. But again, are we bombing? Do we have troops on the ground? Are we losing our ships? Are people being killed left and right? No, none of that is happening. So what are they talking about? The only people that were killed in mass was the leadership of Iran. The weapons that were destroyed are the weapons of Iran. The Air Force that was destroyed is the Air Force of Iran. The Navy that was destroyed was the Navy of Iran. The small boats that they're trying to, go after the Navy, they're being destroyed left and right. So what is everyone talking about? Who has all the leverage? The U.S. does. U.S. is not losing. The U.S. is standing there going, we've got you. We just want you to surrender. Put up the white flag. Do what we say or else. That's what Trump is doing right now. Do you really want to lose more of the country? If you don't, surrender. Now, why is Trump waiting? Well, there's other things that are going on. Their money's frozen. They have nowhere to ship their fuel. They're going to have to shut down their oil wells. They're having a difficult time. They have no money. They have no profits. They have no sales. Nothing's going in and out to their ports. They're the ones who are struggling. And the people of the country are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Trump is just waiting for the right moment. Now, they could end this. They could just surrender. The IRGC could say, you know what? We're done here. And this is the pressure that Trump is putting on them. He's actually breaking their will. That is what you're witnessing right now. All the fake news, all the D's and everyone else that's saying otherwise, it's completely fake, phony, and false, just like everything else they do. And the other thing that's very interesting is that we could see they're now pushing the hantavirus. They're saying it's deadly. It's being pushed from human to human. And look, it's just like COVID. Oh, but don't worry. We don't see any type of pandemic coming. Now, what's very interesting, if you go back a little bit in time, back to 2021, there was an article from Gavi, Gavi, and it says hantavirus is going to be the next pandemic. Now, that's very interesting. How would they know that back in 2021? And if you go back to what Klaus Schwab and his son said, that, yeah, this will be the next pandemic that's going to come out in the world. Now, like we said before, Moderna and the Korea University, they were co-developing a hantavirus vaccine. Now, again, they're running low on funds because no one's seen it until now. Now, do you think they'll get funded? Absolutely. But when you start to look at this, you could see what might be causing this. And a lot of people are pointing to the side effects of the vaccine. Now, think about this. The vaccine has a lot of side effects. It has a lot of illnesses, a lot of diseases, all associated with it. And I'm just going to say this is a hypothetical. What happens if they wanted everyone to get vaccinated? And yes, the people that got vaccinated, you got COVID. That's where you got COVID from because they gave it to you. Plus, they gave you a lot of other things. What happens if these illnesses could be triggered? What happens if they take a group of vaccinated people and all of a sudden they could trigger a virus to come, to actually come out and say, look, that person got it. That's strange. There's no rodents. That person got it. There's no rodents. That person got it. There's no rodents. It must be transferred human to human. Is it really being transferred to human? Or does each human already have it because of the vaccine? Because when you look at the documentation, it shows that this is one of the side effects. Isn't that interesting? And this time around, I do believe it's going to be very different. Now, if you go back a little bit in time, you could see that what happened. Let's see. Trump didn't have control of the CDC, didn't have control of HHS, didn't have control of the FDA, didn't have control of the fake news, because the fake news was in control at that time. When I say control, I mean we have social media now that can actually override the fake news. Didn't have control of the WHO, didn't have control of anything. Remember, we belonged to the WHO, and there was no control whatsoever. So when he mentioned hydroxychloroquine, they can actually shut that down very, very quickly, which Fauci did. He read, first of all, the Lancet came out with fake papers that had to be retracted. Fauci did fake tests. Those people that were on their deathbeds, which was too late to give them hydroxychloroquine, when they overdosed them, they died. Well, yeah, if you overdose someone and you wait to the very, very last minute, yeah, you can't cure someone. So this time around, it's a little bit different. Who's in control of HHS? Oh, of RFK Jr. Who's in control of the CDC? Bhattacharya. Who else is in control? Dr. Oz. So as of right now, the deep state players don't have that control. Think about it. Are we part of the WHO anymore? No, we're not. Now we don't have to listen to them. We never really did, but now we don't have to listen to them. And now we have social media, and they don't have the ability to censor all the doctors who are going to counter everything they're trying to do. Remember, to make the pandemic work, they needed full control, and they needed to censor those doctors that were trying to convince you that, hey, we could take care of this. There didn't have to be a pandemic. When Trump mentioned hydroxychloroquine, was the CDC going to back him up? Was the FDA going to back him up? Was Fauci going to back him up? No, absolutely not. So now, are all these people going to back him? Absolutely. Are the doctors going to be able to speak freely? Absolutely. It's a little bit different this time. And what's very interesting is that Tedros, the president of the WHO, came out and said he hopes this incident will make Argentina and U.S. reconsider the decision to withdraw from the WHO, as the best immunity we have is solidarity, and viruses don't care about politics, borders, or excuses. Now it's becoming clear. Are they trying to get the money from the United States? Are they trying to get the money from Argentina? Are they trying to stop countries from leaving the WHO? Most likely, yes. Is it going to work this time around, this pandemic that they're maybe trying to push? No. None of this is going to work this time. It's all going to fail. And think about it. Even if they tried to push it, and RFK Jr., President Trump, and the rest, and all the doctors say, hey, this is a virus. You know what? Use ivermectin. Use a hydroxychloroquine. This is going to shut down all viruses. And they won't be able to have another pandemic. Go ahead. Try it. Maybe they will. Maybe this is part of the plan. Maybe Trump wants them to go down this path. So this way, all the doctors, his people in place could say, listen, this is what solves the problem with viruses. Maybe it has to be brought out into the open. Maybe people are going to learn hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin is an antiviral medication, and it will fight against COVID. It will fight against flu. It will fight against all of these different viruses. Let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that the deep state players, the drugs that we see in this country, the drug dealing, the shipping in drugs, it's all part of their system. This is why the local level police and mayors and governors will never go after and stop the drug running, because it's part of their system. This is how they bring the money in. They actually want this. This is why the outside law enforcement has to do the jobs. So when you look at the cities like Chicago, New York, and the rest, and you say, God, this is going on for a very long time. Why haven't we stopped this? I mean, Trump shut down the border. Nothing's coming over the border anymore. Well, why can't we stop what's going on in this country? Doesn't make any sense. It's because they don't want it stopped. Brian Cates explains. Now ask yourself the $56,000 question. Why is it the feds that have to move and stop all this drug dealing, drug use that everyone knows is going on? Why can't state and county level law enforcement do it? Well, I'll tell you the answer, but some of you aren't going to believe. The locals are in bed with the cartels. That's why they never seriously made any real attempt to stop this. And he's absolutely right. And once again, remember, this is all part of their system. That's what Trump is destroying. He's destroying their system. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Stacey Abrams, she's out there and she is now panicking. Why? Because of the redistricting. And she's letting everyone know that Republicans are intentionally eroding the black voter voting power. Now, what she's really saying is, holy crap, we gerrymandered everything according to race. Now we're losing all our black votes. Now these black voters are going to be voting for the Republicans. She's panicking like we've never seen before, just like all the rest. And just like we said before, the reason why the local level police and the mayors and the governors aren't going after the drug running is because they're all part of the system. Just like those people in Congress. The criminals in Congress are not going to investigate the criminals in Congress. It doesn't work that way. You have to bring in a new Congress, a patriot Congress, to actually undo everything that they did. For example, Dustin Grage put this out. After Ilhan Omar failed to produce documents requested by the Minnesota House Fraud and Oversight Committee, Chair Kristen Robbins moved to subpoena her. Democrats unanimously blocked the effort protecting Omar. The fraud run deep in Minnesota. Not just Minnesota, in many of the different states and in D.C. Colonel Tanner Watkins says, you guys are delusional. If you think the Congress is going to hold any of Congress accountable for fraud while both parties have funded the fraud for decades, you're crazy. They had oversight of the fraud and chose to do nothing. They haven't passed budgets since the 90s. They literally don't do anything for American citizens except F us over with Orwellian name bills that F over Americans. They're sitting there because of fraudulent elections. Why would they do anything to change that system? Right. They installed themselves. They're criminals. And then criminals are taking the money. They're committing the fraud. Why would they investigate themselves? It doesn't make any sense. This is why it has to be cleaned out. It's like, hey, why doesn't the FBI go after the criminal? Because the FBI was there to protect the criminal syndicate. Same thing with the DOJ. And Congress is no different. That's what you're seeing. The system has to be cleaned out. That's why Cash has been doing it. This is why Pam Bondi did it. That's why Blanche is there now. Transferred one AG to another. Think about it. He's a temp. Very interesting. Why do you think Gabbard had to clean it all out? Why do you think they had to find everything that they hid? Why do you think they hid everything? That should tell you everything you need to know. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that we know the deep state players, they're still trying to remove Trump. Remember, the counterinsurgency is made up of three parts. It's the president, it's the military, and it's the people. They've been going after Trump for a very long time. Now, what they're left with is assassination. That's it. They can't impeach him. They can't indict him. They can't do any of those things. So all they have left is assassination, assassination, assassination. And that's why they're pushing that type of narrative. They can go after the military, like we said before, but that's going to be very, very difficult at this point in time. Slotnick and Kelly, they tried. They might try a little bit more, but it's going to fail. They can come after the people. Again, they try to divide the people. That has failed also. But you can see the only thing that they have left is either the people or the president. Look what Mark Hamill put out. He put out a picture of Trump in a grave with a tombstone. And this is what Mark Hamill says, if only. He should live long enough to witness his inevitable devastating loss in the midterms, be held accountable for this unprecedented corruption, impeached and convicted and humiliated for his countless crimes, long enough to realize he disgraced in the history of books forever. Well, Rapid Response 47 put this out and said, Mark Hamill is one sick individual. These racial left lunatics just can't help themselves. This kind of rhetoric is exactly what has inspired 3 assassination attempts in 2 years against our president. And that is absolutely true. And they're continually pushing this over and over and over and over because they understand the only way to stop the counterinsurgency is to divide the people or remove the president. I don't think the military, they're going to be able to take over. And the other thing that we've come to find out is all these whistleblowers or these people that are saying that, hey, we're on the up and up, just like the influencers and the rest. They're really sleepers that have been activated. And when you look at certain individuals, it becomes completely apparent who they truly are now. So what's very interesting is that Just the News put this out and said the agent Kyle Seraphin was basically fired because he intentionally discharged his weapon in an unsafe manner on a training range while his instructor was in the line of fire. So Just the News got this from the Freedom of Information Act request, got the documentation, and now the truth has come out. He was not suspended by the FBI over his principles, but for reckless use of a firearm. Now, isn't this the one that said that Cash's girlfriend is a Mossad agent, and now his girlfriend is suing Kyle Seraphin for defamation? Yes, absolutely. So again, he's a liar. And now the truth is coming out. And the truth is coming out all over the place. Now think about it. Obama right now is panicking. Obama is making the rounds saying that the attorney general is the people's lawyer, not the president's concierge. And he's trying to stay relevant. He's trying to convince people that Trump shouldn't weaponize the DOJ. Well, let's go back a little bit in time to 2013. Remember when Eric Holder says, "I'm still the president's wingman"? What does he mean by that? He's the wingman? Very, very interesting. So he's always the wingman of the president. He was the attorney general of the United States. But think about it. He said that the DOJ should not be weaponized. Well, Office of the DNI put this out. President Obama directed the creation of his January 2017 intelligence community assessment. It served as the basis for what was essentially a years-long coup against the duly elected president of the United States. So let's see, he used the DOJ and everything that he has to go after the president. He weaponized the entire executive branch against a sitting president. Very, very interesting. So why is he starting this narrative right now? Well, I do believe because, again, Trump is going to be getting uranium, and there are cases that are now ongoing in regards to Brennan, Comey, yes, Obama, Hillary Clinton, Epstein, you name it. And I do believe this is why they're going after Director of the FBI, Kash Patel. Now, there was a hit piece that was, again, put out against Kash, and this is what it says. And this is coming from McKay Coppins. After my story appeared, I heard from people in Patel's orbit and people he has met at public functions who told me that it is not unusual for him to travel with a supply of personalized branded bourbon. The bottles bear the imprint of the Kentucky distillery Woodford Reserve and are engraved with the words Kash Patel, FBI Director, as well as a rendering of an FBI shield. So it looks like Kash makes these bottles custom made. And why does he do this? Cynical Publius explains, I read this article of yellow journalism, so you don't have to. Buried deep in this insane hit piece is the fact that Kash Patel pays for these customized bottles of bourbon himself. So the FBI director pays for some high-quality bourbon and has the bottles customized, all at his own expense, and gives them away to high performers as an awesomely cool gift. How great is that? I wish I had one. Only a Democrat could try and invent a scandal here. Their TDS is just that bad. Very, very interesting. So again, why are they attacking him? Because, again, they're coming after him. And think about what Kash just said. Carly Bone put this out. The hotel room in Moscow, the one in the fake Russia dossier, doesn't even exist. The whole thing was made up, which we know. And think about what Paul Sperry just put out. The FBI Director Kash Patel says there's enough evidence for DOJ to bring a strong case against top Russiagate conspirator, including James Comey, John Brennan, and that the process of finding and presenting supporting documents and swearing in cooperating witnesses before federal grand juries is well underway. Yes, all of it is happening. Yes, there are grand juries. Yes, they're preparing to go after every single one of them. And you're going to see more and more hit pieces come out against the DOJ, against Kash Patel, and the rest. But you know what's going to stop this? Absolutely nothing. Will they try to? Absolutely. Think about what they're planning on. They're planning on riots. They're planning on distractions. They're planning on false flags. And Trump now is planning and prepping to basically counter everything they're trying to do. He's preparing for the insurrection. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said, new Trump counterterrorism strategy elevates threats from leftist groups like Antifa. So the primary new focus, violent secular political groups and domestic extremists on the radical left. This includes Antifa, BLM-style direct action networks, anti-capitalist militants, eco-terrorists, groups driven by anti-American anarchists or radically pro-transgender ideologies once they cross into violence, property destruction, or organized attacks. It directs federal agencies to apply the same aggressive counterterrorism tools to these domestic violent actors as they do foreign threats or criminal organizations. Ideology is not supposed to grant immunity. Violent acts are treated as violent acts regardless of political alignment. Tools that are going to be authorized. IRS and Treasury financial tracking, sanctions on funding networks, disruption of material support and logistics, enhanced law enforcement coordination and intelligence sharing, targeting of networks rather than just individual lone actors, explicit carve-outs, lawful protests, free speech, and peaceful assembly remain protected. The strategy is framed at targeting the only violent subset of these movements, not political beliefs themselves. Trump now is preparing and putting everything into place for what is to come, and that is the insurrection. Remember, he prepares this well in advance, and that is what he's doing right now because he knows what's headed our way. Because again, what's happening? The entire country is sick and tired of the deep state players. As Trump exposes more of the fraud, exposes more of the D's, what's happening? People are stepping up, and more people are going to step up. They're going to run for Congress. And I'm talking about everyday, ordinary people. I'm not talking about career politicians. You're going to see more people step up to be mayor of their city or town. You're going to see more people step up to be governor because all they have to do is use common sense and actually counter every lie that they've told. And it's not going to be that difficult. Look what's happening out in L.A. We have Pratt, Spencer Pratt. He is destroying Bass and the others. Rick Grinnell says, anyone in L.A. who isn't voting for Spencer Pratt is a total idiot. This isn't even close. And Spencer Pratt says, as I promised in the debate, here's the ludicrous 10 million boondoggle in Nithya Raman's district. Matt Vaughan says, in case everyone doesn't have time to dig through the numbers, I did. What this shows is that LA spent $10.7 million to rehab a 1949 motel with 26 rooms. That's $411,543 per room. Just to renovate, the cost of the building was $7.3 million, $281,154 per room to buy a 75-year-old motor inn off of Ventura Boulevard. So this is what they're using the money for. Or did some of it go there and the other was laundered? And all Spencer Pratt has to do, he just has to expose it all. All he has to do is use common sense. And Moakna says Los Angeles has 3 pass. Under Karen Pass, tents. Under Nithya, more tents. Under Spencer Pratt, all cleaned up American flag. I think it's an easy decision. James Wood says Spencer Pratt is surprisingly effective, direct, polite, and prepared in tonight's debate. The other two have a history as their enemy because everything they've done has been a catastrophe. He can absolutely win this thing. Absolutely. And all he has to do is enforce the law. All he has to do is say, I will shut down the drug trafficking. I will clean up the tents. I will prepare for wildfires. I will do everything opposite that they're doing right now, almost like what Trump did. And this is the way. Take the lies, turn everything that they did against them. Use common sense. Show the people they have been laundering the money, that they'll never fix the problem because they are the problem. And I do believe people are going to see this. And the people around the country are going to step up. And people are going to run for the mayor. They're going to run for the governor's office. They're going to run for Congress because enough is enough. Just like the parents went ahead and said, you know something? I see the school board. Well, I'm running against you now. you're going to lose. And this happened in many, many areas. This is the way. This is how we take back the country. And if everyone's worried about the midterms, well, I think Trump has put so many things into place that the midterms are pretty much protected. That doesn't mean you don't vote. That means we have to come out in droves, just like we did with President Trump, to actually quash the entire system that they built, to show them that we're in control. That's what really this is about. You want to play games with the American people? Well, you know what? We're all going to come out and vote, and we're going to show you, since everything that Trump put into place, you don't get any votes. Nobody is voting for you. The tariff man put this out and said, everyone is wrong about the midterms. Republicans aren't losing the House. They're going to expand it. Everyone is acting like this is the usual midterm, where a swing is likely, not this time. Let's start by taking a look at California. A Republican is leading the gubernatorial primary. A Republican is competitive in the LA mayor's race. In California, 6 months ago, that sentence would have been a punchline. If Republicans are winning in California, what does that say? The massive win in Indiana and Ohio tonight by Trump-selected candidates show that voters are happy with President Trump. Nearly every single Trump-endorsed candidate won, and won historically big. You cannot downplay this heading into the midterms. The Supreme Court decision to eliminate racist maps changes the game decisively in Republicans' favor. Districts with voters held hostage by Democrats' machine politics will now have fairer and more equal representation by Republicans. An overnight Republican win. The Democrats are still cheating in New England, where 21 congressional seats remain all Democrat. Even though there are tens of millions of Republicans across these states, the situation here can only get better, and it likely will. The reality is that never-Trumpers in the donor class thought for years that Tucker and Fuentes were the Trump base. They aren't. Now they're endorsing Democrats. The real base, the silent majority, is locked in and energized. Perhaps most importantly, Democrats are lost. They have no unified message. They don't know whether to embrace wokeism or dial it down. They don't know whether to pursue abundance or pursue degrowth, and their voters are becoming more socialistic, more third-worldist, etc. The reality is that the Democrat Party has become purely an oppositional party. The one amplified policy that has come out of the party during the Trump administration is a data center moratorium. In other words, Dems are anti-Trump, anti-Israel, anti-tech, sad. Everyone praying for a 2018 rerun is going to eat their shorts. The economy is kicking thanks to President Trump and tariffs. Republicans will win the House. They hold the Senate. The administration will govern from strength through 2028. Trust the plan. Absolutely. And think about what just happened. The judge has now denied Fulton County's motion for return of the 2020 election ballots seized by the FBI. The judge finds that the country failed to show that its constitutional rights were callously disregarded. And right now, they just lost. You see, they tried to cover all this up. They tried to hide them. They wanted them back. And now it's going to be proven that they cheated in the election. The cover-up always gets you. Awaken Outlaw says Fulton County, Georgia election fraud looks like it will be exposed for everyone to see. The outcome will hit like a nuclear bomb. Once that happens, it makes the most sense that it will serve as the primer to be replicated across the country, the first domino to fall, if you will. Maricopa County, Arizona is likely a candidate to be second, and it will continue on throughout the country because everyone's going to say, well, if it happened there and it happened there, it must have happened everywhere. Should we check? Absolutely. Now, the other thing that's very interesting, when Trump was giving a speech, he said something very, very interesting, and Somers Arrive put this out. Trump just said the military fixed the autocorrect feature on his phone when he used to misspell words. But I got that corrected eventually, he said. You know who corrected it? The military. Quality Control said, for clarity's sake, announced no further need for coded misspelled messages from Q+, per the military. Captain Kyle says, President Trump just said the military fixed the autocorrect feature on his phone when he used to misspell words, but I got that corrected eventually. So what's really happening? Well, it looks like Kim Auer decoded some of it and says the following. So is he confirming his personal phone may have been used for some of the drops with misspellings? and you look at the drops, it's very, very interesting. So that's very interesting. So were the messages on the board actually coming from his phone? Maybe, maybe not. But you could see he's sending us a message, letting us know. Eventually, I think in the end, we will find out the truth. And I think everyone's going to be shocked when we find out, yeah, this was an operation to take back this country from the deep state players. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Brian Halligan, he put out a graph and it says unkind truth and kind lie. And the vertical axis says functional system and the horizontal says dysfunctional system time. And when you look at unkind truth, it comes out, people don't believe, and it drops. And then people start to believe, and then another unkind truth comes out, it dips, and it keeps going up, and it brings us into a functional system. Kind lie, well, all of a sudden, everyone believes it, and then it starts to drop off. And another lie is told, and people believe it, and then it drops off, and we enter a dysfunctional system. So basically, the truth compounds positively while lies compound negatively. No matter how nice the lie feels in the moment, short-term discomfort from honesty pays off massively. Short-term comfort from lying creates long-term disaster. In other words, the good guys win in the end because they face reality. The bad guys lose because they hide it from us. So Elon responded and said, accurate. And I do believe that's what we've been experiencing. Remember, like we said, lies travel around the world while the truth puts on its shoes. And this is why the deep state players are able to push all of this. Because again, you're doing the opposite. You're creating a lie and you're trying to prove the other way around. And they do this on purpose because they know the lie will infiltrate everywhere before the truth comes out. And that's why sometimes it takes a little while and sometimes the truth is a little bit unbelievable in the beginning. But as the truth wins over the lie, they try again and they again and again. But what happens is people start to question everything that they're doing. And people start to say, you know something? I don't believe. I need to wait a little bit. I need to see the truth. And in the end, they lose. And that's what we're witnessing right now. It's becoming harder and harder for them. And it's becoming easier and easier for the patriots. And in the end, the patriots are going to win. Why? Because the patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.